Welcome everyone to the Analytic Mind podcast. Really interesting guest today. Here I've got Anuj Kapoor. Now, Anuj works for one of the largest healthcare, or if not, maybe the largest healthcare company in the United States. So really excited to leverage off his experiences around a whole raft of different data and analytics topics. Anuj, why don't I, instead of fumbling around an intro, why don't I pass it over to you and maybe you dive a little bit deeper into sort of your background, what you're currently doing now as part of the United Health Group, and then we'll just take things from there.
Sure, Sam. First of all, thanks for inviting me on this podcast. And when you reach out to me, it's good to share your experiences, right? It's a very tight community, right, of analytics folks across the world, right, sharing experiences. Sometimes on the weekend, I actually learn from my colleagues in different company or even within the company. We are such a large enterprise, right? So for your audience, my name is Anuj Kapoor. I'm a director for analytics for Optum RX and specifically to specialty and infusion business. And as an organization, we are so huge. We for the audience purpose, United Health Group have two major components. One is United Healthcare. We are the largest health insurance company in United States. Then we have a service arm being called as Optum, and Optum have three book of businesses. The way we report to Wall Street is Optum RX, Optum Health, and Optum Insight. And I work for Optum RX, specifically to one of the division of Optum RX is specialty and infusion pharmacy, where my role is to drive growth, improve patient and provider experience, and drive cost whatever we do. So that's what I do for Optum, and I'm associated with Optum from last 10 years or so, and where I learn um, I will say basic principle of data analytics on day-to-day basis. Before Optum, I worked for different pharmaceutical companies like Novartis, Johnson and Johnson, and work with a consulting firm being acquired by Parexel now. And in this 16 years of journey, I have 5 international patents on drug discovery, and I have written a book on drug discovery with Tata Micro Hills in India. And I have around more than 20 plus international publication on health economics and outcome research. By education, I'm a pharmacist, but I have an analytic bend of mind, and that's why I'm hearing and speaking with Sam today.
That's great. Wow, there's some interesting things there that I didn't even know. So so it'd be great to maybe have a look into those as we chat. Now, so you're working in a really large organization at the moment, and you've worked at historically some large organizations. What are some of the unique insights that you feel, in your space within those large organizations? Because within large organizations, there's a bit of bureaucracy, there's politics. So what are some of the unique things that you've seen in the data and analytics area specifically?
So yes, so it's a very very good question, right? And the way I see the things, when you ask right questions, then you will get a right answers. So what I love about working with United, right? Your questions being heard, right? So that's the culture which we have in United Health Group, right? So many times when we look into our analytics community or a data analyst or I will say data consultant, uh, if they get more specific on the data, right? They they get into the weeds rather than what the problem they are solving. So any data and analytics questions and problem need to be defined first, right? What we are solving, right, for, and then you get into the data, what data we need. And that's where the key is. And my recommendation always to my team and to the broader group is, why you need data? First define the problem statement for me, right? If you have an hypothesis you want to answer, right? If you don't know, then the data is data, right? It's
Mhm.
putting into a different source system, right? So that's one of my recommendation would be, what's your problem statement and what you are going to solve for. And when you solve for the leadership, or I will say executive, what they look for, if you have this problem statement, what you're going to solve for, right? What's the value and ROI of it, right? And that's
Mhm.
why you put an effort to do a kind of analytical framework, right? That's why you need the data. So anything which you resonate with Wall Street, or it's resonate with any enterprise, right? If you solve this problem statement, are you going to decrease the cost for the enterprise? Are you going to show the revenue growth for the enterprise? The third is, if we do so, then we can serve our customer better. Are you improving the experience? If we are able to answer these three, right? Any of your problem statement should serve these three problem statement or three hypotheses, right? It's going to
Mhm.
drive the cost, it's going to increase the revenue, or it's drive experience. Other than these three pieces, there is nothing as a business, right? And that's what executive
Mm.
is much more worried about day and night. And that's what we need to answer through our data. And I
Mm.
think that's where people lose insight, because they are more engineers, or I will say data consultant. They want to work on the data, but they don't focus on problem statement. And the problem statement should be attached with certain return of investment for the executive. And what
Mm.
I'm able to do in 16 years, right, to convince the executives or leadership is uh, is asking the right questions,
Mm.
which
I
help the
love that.
enterprise
Yeah.
to flourish. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of great things that you've mentioned there. Well, one of the things that sticks out to me is sort of this triangle of cost, revenue, and experience, focusing your analytical efforts or your priorities around those three things. And if you
Yep.
can do that, that's when you can actually showcase the upfront value before you go and spend money on the technology or spend the time and the resource. So I really like that. One of the other things that I want to follow up with you on is within these large organizations, and I presume even within your segment of the larger piece of the puzzle, um, you've got so many opportunities in front of you around your time, cost, revenue, and experience. How do you prioritize? How do you work out what to prioritize within each of these initiatives that you could be running around data and analytics?
Again, very good question, Sam. So the way, and I said that united culture, right?
Mm.
The patient or the member come first, right? And that's what we want to focus upon. And that's
Mhm.
what the healthcare is all about, right?
Mhm.
Your revenue, your cost can come later, your patient experience. So that's why we always say one at a time, one patient at a time, one physician at a time. So we want
Mhm.
to serve them, give a more personalized experience. If we do this thing better, then cost and revenue will happen automatically. So our first priority is patient and provider and the healthcare stakeholders come first.
Mhm.
That's how we look into and prioritize our work. The second is, are we serving them? What's get a business goal in mind, right? We are in the business. So what will happen if we serve them better? Can we serve them better in a more affordable way? So that's the cost. Can we decrease the cost per script for the patient? Can we help the patient to have financial assistance for their drugs, what they need? Can we deliver the medication on time? Can we help the patient so that they can have adherence to the drug, so that they can be treated better, right? Can we look into it? The patient require nurses on the phone. Can we provide that services on time? If the patient have something to share with about their I will say mental status, can we have some advocates on the call to share their experiences, what they are feeling? So
Mm.
in this way,
Mm.
we can proactively make healthcare affordable, but also serve the customer better, which is the
Mm.
utmost thing for any business. So
Mm.
in United Culture, we believe serve customer one at a time, provide more personalized services to the customer, then the rest will fall upon automatically. So that's how we prioritize our work in the large organization like us.
Those are all great examples of a range of optimizations that you can that you can complete within a business in general. To me, though, they stand out in that they're always things they're sort of like you never fully solve them, so they're kind of like always open. And so how when you always want to serve your customer better, you always want to make a better experience, you always want to serve them faster and cheaper. So how do you, within those questions, extract what you should then focus on? Because I presume you might have a range of different business functions coming at you at the same time, and you've got resource constraints. So is it as simple as okay, what's got the highest ROI? Is it as simple as that, or is there more to it?
Yep. Again, a very valid question, and that's we face, right? It's more about a demand and supply question, right? The way I look into it. The demand is everyone wants the things to be done yesterday, right? And where I operate, I work for the sales team, I work for operations team, right? Where we track our key metrics for the business. But I realize in last 16 years, right? We don't have an army of people, right, to to solve for every problem which enterprise have. But we do want to make sure we prioritize those in a way which help the enterprise overall. So the first thing we look into it, can we streamline more of our data pieces, right? So the puzzle or data will answer what's the cost benefit and ROI is, right? So the good thing we have done as an enterprise is bring all the data together and have a data roadmap, right? What type of data will answer what type of questions. So that's the good thing we have done as an enterprise. Second thing we have done, the quality of the data on which we make decision making, and that's what many of new startup, I will say big enterprise, forget, because they go with the hype like artificial intelligence, machine learning, but the quality of the data is not appropriate to apply those. So the
Mm-hmm.
second thing, good thing we have done as an enterprise, what's the quality of the data, right? Can we do a dynamic testing of the data if it's falling appropriate as per expectation, so we can make better decision. The third is that how we can prioritize this. That's your question. So we look into from the patient lens, provider lens, health insurance lens, pharmacy lens, PBM lens, right? Where we have a biggest opportunity and ROI, we do our formal CBA process for any
Mm-hmm.
opportunity and score them, that which one to focus upon, and follow certain agile methodology, right? To such as Kanban or I will say uh, agile, to score each of our opportunities with the valid ROI and prioritize based on the resources constraint we have. So in this way, we serve the enterprise where we have maximum opportunity and a valid return. And
Mm-hmm.
as I mentioned, um, money will come, right, or revenue will fall upon, or cost to serve the can be decreased. But as an enterprise, our focus is to serve the patient first, because that's the priority when you work in a healthcare analytics and a more controlled environment where your major objective is to serve uh, who need us, right? And that's what I love about United, um,
Mm-hmm.
being contributing, I will say, 0.1 or 0.001% of it, and being in such a massive organization is still able to serve patients and members who need us.
Mm. That's great. I really like the idea there of having a custom scoring. Just the broad idea of a custom scoring mechanism to prioritize, and I think that is a fair way to evaluate. Because all businesses are different, and so I don't think that there's one way you can score things. I mean, there's probably a lot of different factors that go into what should be prioritized in the analytics with your analytics initiatives and some sort of custom scoring mechanism to almost announce to the organization what you're going to focus on first and prioritize, I think is a really good strategy and can add a lot of value. What I wanted to jump into next, Anuj, was I presume it sounds like you've probably got a lot of things going on at the same time. What's your philosophy on enablement? So how do you actually enable your initiatives around data in your organization? So for example, there is a very, recently there's this big push around self-service. So you're actually giving a lot of the sort of visualization abilities to the sort of front lines. But also there's a lot of work that needs to be done in the back end. So what is your thoughts on what's the best method for enablement of data strategies?
Again, a great question, right? And that's what keep me awake, right? I've been in industry from last 16 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I still remember when I joined my first company, right? And technology is not evolved to an extent where we are currently today, right? Um, the data set or digitization not happened to such a larger extent where we are today. So my recommendation, you can say, or experience, right, over 16 years, the way I look into it. The first is people started doing a descriptive analytics. When I say descriptive, it's a simple method. You pull the data and you have two group. One is control and one is test, right? And you can compare it. Okay, how X number of people are doing compared to Y, right? Which is a simple descriptive analytics. And I still prefer that descriptive way of looking into the data because we know the hype of AI and machine learning, right? People
Mm-hmm.
want to predict the future. Unless and until I trust the data, I can't predict the future, right? So I want to get a good hold on my descriptive data. What is the quality of the data? Is the data every time I receive is the correct data? Because all my decision is based on that, which is more descriptive in nature. Then there is an era of visualization. If I remember when I start putting my dashboard in Microsoft Excel spreadsheet.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have this Power BI, ClickView, Tableau, Einstein in Salesforce, right? You name
Mm-hmm.
it, I've worked on those technology and tools, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or either my team have actually working upon those too, right? Uh, is it a more, I will say, um, awesome way of representing the data? Yes, right? Are you going to get different what you have in a spreadsheet? No, because it's just you require more time to have a dashboard in a spreadsheet as compared to these new technologies we have. And that's why I'll say tools are enablement. Tools enable the company to be fast, efficient, and help to drive the business decision making. So one era I've seen is about business intelligence, where everyone wants to use Tableau, Power BI, ClickView, or so many tools available in the marketplace. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
you can compare. There's one is better over the other, but that's not the purpose here. That's one of the era I've seen. But only the problem I see with those tools or those technology, even with the spreadsheet, is someone have to go and click it. And there is a time of the person who's seeing it, right? The person should know and be competent, like an analytic mind who knows what to look at it. And that's not sometime is possible with the people like who in sales. They are not analytics people. You are putting a lot of data in front of them, right? What they needed is a simple an answer to their question, right? And now what the era is about machine learning, supervised learning, unsupervised machine learning, and also artificial intelligence. And then voice, like you ask Siri right now that Siri, right, what's the weather outside? Siri give you an answer. That's what people looking for now in industry. And even in healthcare, even I will say across in the finance sector or banking sector, I will say. So my vision to the group I'm the part of, my vision to the group is, can we save people time rather than then go to their desktop or laptop or iPhone or iPad. They still need to go to the dashboard and select certain drop down to get the information what they are looking for. So how we can add voice to that BI tool? Because it's already there, data is there, you can build supervised model, and you ask the question, we will create another Siri which is a part of our organization which will answer the question. For example, the sales team works on the quota or targets. We give them the target, we say that okay, you need to meet $10 million every month. And now to look into it, where that sales rep, or I will say the the person, they need to go select their name from the drop down, look into their sales, and get into where they are currently against their targets, right? So if they ask the simple question like Siri, where I'm against my targets, where I am going up, where I'm going down, for which physician we need to meet, for which health system we need to meet, whatever, right? So the future of visualization or tools I see is the voice, where people ask questions, we get an answer. But
Hmm.
to develop such tools, or I will say such automated tools, or I will say such perfect tools where you ask the question, you get an answer, your data quality will drive it. And that's
Hmm.
where I see less focus of the people and enterprise, because
Hmm.
they get into the hype, right? We can create a voice-based tool, but if your underlying data is wrong, then the Siri will also give you a wrong answer, right? So that's what my
I
vision
think
about the technology and the tools. Yeah,
I think the reality is that um, the when data quality isn't as sexy as data visualization. I think that's just the reality.
yeah, that's the reality. And I push my team members, right? If the data
Yeah.
is not right, maybe you have created Sankey chart, you have created bubble chart. These look fancy, right? People like
Mm-hmm.
fancy thing, right? Even you and me.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
for business decision, those fancy chart, right? If I look into and make a decision, which costs the enterprise millions, I would rather prefer to spend more time on my data quality rather than on those fancy stuff.
Mm. Yeah, it's always a balancing act, isn't it? Because one thing that I think that these new age of tools has done is that they're really marketing the value proposition of data and analytics better than ever before, because historically it was all just static, it was PowerPoint, it was really first generation tools, but now you can actually get so much more buy-in from the executive layer, key stakeholders, and that's what's going to drive more investment back into the data and analytics space. And then obviously a lot of those other things can be improved at the same time. So even though they're not the entire answer, and I think you were sort of suggesting that as well, I think they are a big part of getting it front and center, front of mind. And I've certainly seen that with my own experiences over time as well.
Yep. And I always believe these tools and technologies are the enablers. They make you
Hmm.
efficient. They help you to do
Hmm.
your job.
Hmm.
But if you miss the business acumen or domain, then you don't understand your data, right? So these
Mm.
tools not going to help. That's why we have a very rigorous training process in Optum. Whosoever
Mm.
join us, we want to spend time with new people. People come from finance industry, right? People come from different domains. We always want to spend time. They understand healthcare, they understand our business, they can do wonders with the data. Otherwise, is data as it is in the system is always a one data point, right? If you
Mm.
can't make a sense out of that data point, then we don't have a right people to do the job. And that's why we spend a lot of time training people in which business we are in, what data important to us, what key metrics important to us, why it's
Mm.
important to us, and that help us to get things done here.
Mm. Well, I think that is such a strong point to dive into. Um, and a really good segue into a question I have for you is how, not everyone is of the analytic mind, as you said. How do we, but I think we both agree that data and analytics is becoming far more prevalent, there's far more immersion in it. There's so much value that can be extracted from it. So how do organizations of any size, how do they build more data savviness? How do we enable people to be more analytic minded? I know you mentioned training, but maybe more specifics around how do we build a sort of a culture around this where everyone is able to be competent with the their with data, and with the value that can be extracted from these initiatives.
Again, great question, right? And I can talk about my journey, right? And as I've said in my introduction, I'm a pharmacist by education.
Mm-hmm.
So I understand science, I understand
Mm-hmm.
drug, I understand diseases.
Mm-hmm.
And when I started my journey with pharmaceutical companies, what I what I learned is more towards clinical data. And that's why it's my passion always to identify new treatments and where we see a gap, right? So diseases like cancer, multiple sclerosis, right? And there are many diseases we don't have a treatment like Alzheimer, etc. And what I learned in those 16 years is nobody can teach you, right? People say, right, we don't have a organized training in the enterprise, right, which talks about oh, what stuff we need to work upon, right? You can have an organized training. Is my advice to your audience will be, right? The first thing is, are you doing what you are passionate about, right? I'm passionate about healthcare. That's why I am in healthcare. The second thing is I'm passionate about the data, and I always learn new things with the data because data tell me that is the right treatment for the patient. We see a lot of data coming out of this COVID vaccine, right? I still go and download the data by myself and compare the data of efficacy of these vaccine because I'm passionate about it. So my recommendation to your audience will be training is one thing and enterprise do a wonderful job what they need to do based on their size of the enterprise and how they invest on their people with an employee engagement, etc. But my recommendation is up to you
Mm.
how much you passionate about, right? How you
Mm.
approach it. It's every journey is different. When I started analytic journey in my career, I started with three simple principles, and all the analytics is dependent upon that. It's the basic principle of statistics. All the numbers is mean, median, and mode. Rest is hype. In the data, if you can look into the average, look into the median, you look into the mode, these are the three critical variables of the data. Nothing much. All are hype. Then you have minimum and maximum.
Mm-hmm.
That's what data will tell you. Nothing else, nothing new. Then you apply certain statistic principle to summarize the data. What that
Mm-hmm.
statistical principle is 95% confidence interval, right? We say that mean will fall on that or median will fall on that. So if I say the basic of analytics lie in the simplicity, people created a hype out of it. Don't get into the hype, get into the basic detail, get your fundamentals right, and nobody can teach you the fundamentals. So
Mm.
if you are passionate about, my suggestion is start downloading the data, play with data as much you play with the data, the domain you are in, and focus on the basic principles of data, which is mean, median, mode,
Mm-hmm.
and then start getting into the hype like machine learning, AI, supervised, unsupervised learning. And that's why I still in 16 years of careers, I have built AI models, I have built machine learning models. I still rely on 90% of the time on my descriptive analytics. I look
Mm-hmm.
into mean, median, mode. Those will answer my most of the question. Now, if I want to offer something to my customer which is great enough, I check my data quality and build those models on top of it, my data, which will
Mhm.
help me to drive the predictive view of the future, right? Or I will say I don't require a resource to do it. I can create a bot on top of my data, which will do an intelligent decision making. So again, in a nutshell, uh, focus on your enterprise training. That helps you to learn the domain. Second is download the data for your domain. Focus on basic metrics like mean, median, mode. Start from there and then start getting into more complex way of doing the things.
Hmm. Yeah, I like some of your thoughts there. I definitely agree with the intellectual curiosity, not only for individuals, but almost like a collective. If you can build a collective intellectual curiosity within your teams, within your business functions, I think that is going to be a powerful driver around the value extraction from your data initiatives. I think
Yep.
that's a really good one. And another thing that sort of pops up into my mind when you mention sort of the stages in terms of like start here, go to here, with your analytics work is prototyping. I think that is a really good way to build engagement, pretty early on, and get buy-in, and also build that analytical capability. Is just get some simple prototyping. It doesn't need to be a rubber stamped report. It doesn't need to be something that you send up to the board level, or that you actually make decisions on from day one. It's just the involvement. It's just getting the engagement up front. I think is half the battle. And once you do that, you can get into the more advanced and exciting parts of the analytics space. That's kind of my key takeaway.
Totally agree, and you have used the right word, intellectual curiosity, right?
Mm,
And you can't expect that enterprise have everyone who is passionate about the job, right? And
mm,
passionate about what they do, because we need to run a company, right? And enterprise need to look into it. You can't have all the rock star, right?
mhm,
You will
mhm,
have some rock star in your team, right? And that's where your intellectual curiosity started. And totally agree with you, that's what we do. We don't want to boil the ocean, right? What we want to do is start small, create a prototype, do a pilot, prove the ROI, scale it up, right? And that's
mm,
the journey of any analytic project or any analytic framework. Because when you
mm,
go with lot of metrics, lot of data, this will confuse people, right? Be small, be simple and nimble, and show the prototype can do, and then scale it up, because then people start trusting you, believing you, and maybe they are not technical but they buy your decision what's right for the business.
mm. Yeah, nice. I 100% agree. Why don't we move on to what I thought would be really interesting, because you work in quite a unique area, right?
Yep.
You're healthcare, and you've got a unique background. What are some exciting things that you are actually doing? Like, what are some exciting projects that you're working on that are having a big impact? I think that would be really interesting to maybe dive into some of those.
Yes, so again, interesting question. uh, Couple of things we do, right? As I mentioned, our main goal is to serve the patient one at a time, right? Now when I say I work for a specific department or a division of Optum, so I represent Optum RX specialty and infusion business. What it means, right, for your audience is specialty and infusion, right? Specialty is a group of drugs which which the name depicts by itself is special. When we say special, they are high cost drug. They are manufactured not same like a drug like paracetamol. They they get discovered and manufactured with a biological process. The third aspect is you don't find a lot of patients will be taking this drug as a low volume, high cost drug. The fourth is of biological origin. There are high chances the patient may have a side effect to these drugs. And fifth is uh, these these drugs administration will require a supervision by the physician or a healthcare worker, right? Now it's low volume, high cost, uh, uh, kind of a category of the drugs. So these patients who have special diseases, for example, unfortunately, these patients have cancer. These patients have multiple sclerosis, and these patients may have cystic fibrosis. These patients may have hemophilia. Now, these patients require special care, and think about their immune system is already very weak. There are high chances these patients are polychronic. When I say polychronic, along with this main disease, they have certain other diseases. Now think about the condition this patient is in, where the patient is on multi-treatment, polychronic condition, and now you want to serve them better, right? And that's the fantastic job I'm doing from last 10 years. And that's what I'm passionate about, love about it.
Mm,
So how we take these individuals and take care of them personally. What we have seen in the pharmacy space, people are in the dispensing business where you get a prescription, you get the drug. But how you do an overall care for this patient by looking into their condition. So we look into the patient in a 360-degree view. What the total needs of the patient, what their healthcare needs are. And within United Health Group, right, we touch all portion of the healthcare system. We are the largest payer, we are the largest PBM, we are the largest pharmacy, we have the largest provider network, we are the largest supplier for pharmaceutical company. So we touch every portion of the healthcare ecosystem. And when we touch it, we can have a holistic view of the patient through our data. What these unique needs of these patient, when this patient require nurses, when these patients require a phone call from our advocate, when our provider require help if my prescription or their prescription get stuck in the prior authorization system because these are high cost drugs. How we overlay this 360-degree view of the physician, 360-degree view of the patient, and align our resources to improve their experience and make sure we care for the patient first, one at a time, and and all those things possible with the data set we have. So we have
mm,
a 360-degree view of the data, and that's what I will say we work upon it, and I'm passionate about it, and I learn daily when to call the patient,
mm,
when the patient call us, what the patient is looking from us. Can we know it in advance to help them rather than they reach out to us? Can we reach out to them in advance and take care of them and look into those
mm,
data points when to have those intelligent bot or our advocates should call, when we should send the text, when we engage with them, we can engage them with the portal or app. Can we send a notification? Can we look into it? They are adherents to their drug, to their prescription. If they have not bought the drug from us, can we check with them if they are taking the drug on time? Can we check with their prescriber if we are not able to track the patient? So think
mm.
about the data set we have and the
Yeah.
volume of the data we have and the touch point we have, and we are trying
Mm,
to have a patient journey with us,
mm,
and we want to get as much as help possible from our side to help our patient to have healthier lives.
mm. I mean, that's really fascinating stuff. What sticks out to me is you've got so many data inputs, but you've got
Yep.
so many outputs as well from the logic that you are building around your
Mm,
data. You know, you've got your web portal, you've got notifications, you've got calling patients, you've got evaluating the drug efficiency, like optimization. I'm probably not using the right terminology, but I mean, the complexity seems huge. It seems huge, and obviously
yep.
this isn't just one project that you get done, right. This is a constant thing that evolves over time. What are I mean, maybe if you could give us an insight around how how do how do you manage that complexity? Like, is it and is there, you know, is there a pipeline that's been set up around your sort of technology that enables the managing of that complexity?
Yes, again, great question, right? So, so we work on the latest and greatest technology with the massive data set we have, right? And I can talk about in brief. Our journey is right. We started with our NoSQL and SQL process, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
what the database is all about. Then we have some organic growth, we have inorganic growth in the business, right? Where we acquired the different pharmacies and systems. So we have different upstream system. We need to consolidate the data some way and create a master data management, right? Which is the most important factor in our healthcare or anywhere. If you can't track your customer, that means you are doing a shitty job in your business, right? And that's what my worry is. Are we tracking our patient in a unique way? Do we have a patient MDM? Are we tracking all the data point one patient across our source system, across our upstream system, whether it is pharmacy, whether it's PBM, how we bring all the data together, have a unique way of tracking the patient journey. So we started with SQL, then the technology evolved. Again, those are enabler for us. We move into big data, Hadoop environment. Now we are testing a graph database where you have more parallel processing. You can create the nodes, right? And you can run your query in a more fast manner, efficient manner, and then you create API on top of it, right? Where you can have real-time feeds. So if I need to say that there is a journey we had as an enterprise,
Mm-hmm.
and as the technology evolve, we evolve ourselves so that we are not late in the game. And if we want to have a real-time feed of the data, we have our database moving from relational to more parallel processing and using big data where it's required, where you use graph database as per the need of the business, volume of the data, frequency of the data, right? Then do we want to have a Kafka streaming on top of it, right? To build an API, and we want to build for multi variable API or a specific API for like a portal or an app. So depending upon the needs, we
Mm-hmm.
choose our toolbox, right?
Mm-hmm.
But as an enterprise, we have done a pretty awesome job in terms of getting the right technology at the right place with the right data point, I'll say.
Mm. That's great. That's great. Yeah, I presume when you're dealing with the enormous volumes and scope of data that you would be in an organization of your size, you know, getting the right infrastructure set up is of huge importance. It's hard to build on top of a shaky foundation. I think that's a really interesting insight, and it's good that you sort of brought up some technologies. I think that's useful just to understand what sort of best in practices is using to make that happen. One we've sort of motored through our time allotment here, which is great. It's been a really insightful discussion. What I would like to maybe touch on briefly is, because I know a lot of our audience, a lot of our listeners are not always from an IT background themselves, and they are sort of been more introduced to the analytics space by using tools like Power BI and Tableau and ClickView. And I want to get an understanding on how pervasive these technologies are within your organization, and where you think it might go in the future, like with these technologies more widely available. Because what we're seeing, especially with Power BI, that's where my organization has most of our experiences. It really is becoming more embedded in people's lives. It's one click away from your email. You can bring up visualizations in Microsoft Teams now, and I think the voice activation is coming. And so I want to just get an idea of what the status is with these technologies within your organization, and also how you think they could enable things in a bigger way in the future.
Again, great question, right? So, and it's my viewpoint, right? The way I look into the industry, right? Uh, mm, Tools are important, but where those tools need to be fit in the enterprise is also important, right? Because others are doing it doesn't mean you also do it, because
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't fit your business model or what we do. So we use all the tools you mentioned depending upon the function we are in, the type of people we have in that particular department or group, right? Some are more comfortable with Tableau, some are more comfortable with Power BI, some are more comfortable with ClickView. But as an enterprise, what matter to us, what these tools will help us to achieve, right? So one way of looking into it, uh, within my 10 years of journey, I've used all the three tools by me or by my team. So we have an access to these tools, but it's depending upon the skill set, who need to develop these dashboards. They should also understand how Power BI work because syntax are different, and depending upon the size of the data, right? When you move into production, if your volume of data on a daily basis is in millions, right, which gives us a more appropriate performance so that it's not refreshing for 5 minutes, 10 minutes. So performance is a key. The third is all most of the tools work on the basic principle, right? Because in my journey, I built those dashboard in spreadsheet. What these guys have done, given a more drag and drop functionality, right? So it's more easy for non-IT people to also create dashboard. They can learn, they can have a new career option, right? For business intelligence and development of such dashboards. So if you ask me, my personal viewpoint is for me, these are mere tools. And these tools are there today. Maybe they are not in future, right? So for me, any new technology is just an enabler. What
Mm-hmm.
matters to me is why I'm using it and it's
Mm-hmm.
worth using it. If I'm using it, can I get an open source? I don't have
Mm-hmm.
to pay for it. And that's what the future will be. And people start choosing the technology based on the business need. But still, uh, people or enterprises are evolving, and, those decisions are being made at a upper level, right? What type of tools box we needed, why we needed.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes those decisions being done without doing a proper survey, right? Which tools we need to be have in toolbox rather than paying for 10 variety of tools. So I think the industry will move there where they preferred one over the other, right? And have a more negotiated based agreements on those toolbox with the vendor or with the provider.
Mm-hmm.
And they will I will say industry will work with them to evolve that tool for the future use. What I have not seen, people build the tool but they don't keep the business in mind, and they get those feedback from community. So when the larger enterprise will work with this technology enabler or provider, and they work together to make the future of this tool. We talked about voice may work for finance industry better because it's have a more structured data, but the voice may not work with the healthcare industry. How you get input from healthcare industry, finance industry, or I will say retail industry, so that when they launch something in the marketplace that have so much of experience within the tool, so that nobody can change it in 10 years or 20 years. But I will see the BI is a more kind of now and then you will find someone is coming up with their BI tool, but
Mm-hmm.
I still feel Tableau have an edge over others. Power BI have an edge over others compared to other tool in the marketplace. And because they're
Mm-hmm.
part of the massive organization, they have those leadership and thinking to evolve this tool based on the input from the big enterprise like us.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I think that's a really good point you make.
And if I'm talking too much, just interrupt me in between.
No, 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 no worries at all. No worries at all. We might finish up with a final question next because I like to we like to keep these to around sort of 50 minutes or so. Um, but one thing that I think was interesting is that these latest tools are they are great. There's no denying that they are opening up advanced analytics or just analytics to a whole new world of people. So I don't think there's anything wrong there, but I do like your perspective where these are just tools, right? You cannot forget the people. You cannot forget the problem statements. You cannot connect the fundamentals of what you are using them for. And at the end of the day, these tools could be outdated in 5 years' time, and we could be just at voice, or we could just have total automation of this. And so I just love that holistic view where it's not just about one thing. It's about bringing multiple things together to get the maximum impact. And that's sort of what I gathered from your perspective.
And maybe you will speak to some IT people, right, or technology people. Uh, they may able to tell you. I'm not an expert, to be honest with you, right? Which one is
Mm,
better over the other, right? Uh,
mm,
it's a toolbox, right? This will help me to do my job better, right?
mm,
Be more efficient, right? So if I, in my old days, I have a pencil box, right? When I go to school. So when I am like first grade, I have pencil in my box. When I actually ninth grade, I have a pen in my box. When I've gone for my graduation, I have a computer at my home. Now, when I have done my post graduation, I have a laptop in my box bag. But
mhm,
my goal across my education is I have a learning. The rest is the medium to learn.
mm. Yeah,
So
love it.
tool help me, right? Tool help me to do my job better, make me more efficient, but my fundamentals will always remain same. And those tools are also built on those fundamentals. That's why they are able to build, and they know what are the problem people face when they use spreadsheet. When they build dashboard in spreadsheet, they need to write a lot of formulas, right? And Microsoft, if I talk about, they have learned in their PowerPoint and spreadsheet. And in 2010 version, I've seen they have called as a button called as an idea. You have a data in a spreadsheet. If you click on idea, the spreadsheet will tell you the pattern in your data. So see, Microsoft spreadsheet is also evolving. They
Mm,
know what people are looking for, and that's the best part of the company, like these, who knows what customer wants,
mm,
what for what
mm,
purpose people use those tools. So that's interesting, and I keep on tracking what's new happening in the technology world, and
mhm.
that helps me keep me posted, right, and updated, which one to use where, and drive those enablement in my day-to-day job and also in enterprise.
Great. No, that's good. I like it. Last question for you, Anuj, before we round off this episode. Maybe talk to is there any big trend that you're sort of seeing in the data and analytics space that might be non-obvious? Um, that maybe it's specific to your industry, or to your business, but just something that historically I've heard automation as one, right? Self-service is another one. But is there anything else sort of unique to what you have done or what you're doing now that you see as a big trend that we should watch out for?
I will say I worked on like last year, and the project which is closer to my heart, right, and I can share is one is structured data, right, where you have numericals and you are working on numbers. The second is unstructured data, which is more doctor notes, patient notes, call center notes. Then you have big agreements with your provider networks. You may have agreements with any party, with your vendors. Now, those information lies in your repository, in your SharePoint folders. You don't know what you have agreed upon, what the payment terms are, right? How much you are overpaying and underpaying. So, how you mine this unstructured data
Mm,
and digitize these contracts or these these patient notes or provider notes or call center notes and digitized to an extent where you can use this information, which will help your three basic principle I always say: for your growth, for for your cost saving, and your experience. So unstructured data analytics uh, can be used many ways, and at the future, and industries start looking into it, digitization of their whole contracts, vendor contracts, or other contracts, where I think the future will lie. And apart from automation, voice, and the second, I will talk about the image. In our industry, in healthcare, you have X-rays, you have ultrasound reports, you have eye images, right? How we can take those image data, detect the disease early in the process. So if someone have an X-ray, can we detect a lung cancer early through
Mm,
ultrasound, X-ray images? So second trend, I will say how image analytics and detecting the disease early in the process. So that we can manage the patient early in their disease process rather than unfortunately whatever we can do in their late stages, right?
mm,
We are always there to help them. So I say what's related to us is more unstructured data.
mhm,
That's where I see a big changes will happening, and that those EHR records, right? You will have a lot of text, and then how you take those texts, put in the ICD-10 codes, Nomad, and medical dictionary, extract the structured data out of unstructured data. The second is image, how we can use those X-ray images or lab tests, which require to use microscope. Why not? We can have microscope. When you put a slide, you diagnose the disease or you get the
mm,
reading. And industry is
mm,
moving towards it. Like some of the company like GE and others, they are trying to innovate with their ultrasound or big machines so that you don't require radiologist. Your machines will give us early interpretation what's going on with the patients. So those are I believe a future
mm,
from healthcare standpoint, and
mm,
it's very fascinating for me, and I
mm.
will see if I get an opportunity to work on such use cases.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, just hearing those, it's quite inspiring, right? The healthcare industry is just going through this huge transformation because of, a lot of the advanced tools and advanced analytics that can be done, and the value that can be generated. The value generation is just so significant that
Yep.
there's so much money and resource being put into this area. So it certainly is an exciting time. I mean, one of the other things that sort of came to me was, even Apple are saying, they might become known as a healthcare company themselves, with Apple Watch and the iPhone, etc. That's where they personally, where they as a business see a huge impact that they can make. So yeah, really, really, really
Lot of
fascinating
variables,
space.
and that's what that makes me very, I will say, lucky enough to work in a healthcare with God
Mm,
grace. I chosen my education as a pharmacy. I understand science. Now I can connect the dots better, right? What scientific
hmm
communities require. Think about
mm,
for COVID, right? COVID, we see a lot of news articles, right? We don't know which one to trust. And when I open a phone after my office, I see thousands of articles about COVID, which is new. Which one to trust?
mm,
Which one have the right data set, right? Now, what's the possibility, right? And that's where you need to restrict somehow, right, the information age, right? So
mm,
that we
mm,
push the information which is required for the audience. It should be vetted before it get published. So
mm,
how we take this unstructured data with a lot of data variables in it, and if the machine able to read it and provide a summary out of it, which one to trust, which one to not to trust, that's the future of information age. And
mm,
that's what I would love to see when my kids grow up, and maybe what we are learning today, it's obsolete. Something
mm,
new will come up in next 20 years. And I have seen a fascinated growth in technology, AI, machine learning, and even Google. When I opened my first email account, we don't have Google to search. We need to read the textbooks.
Mm.
And now everything is on one click. So I think my kid will have a different future. And it's fascinating to look at what's in for us.
Yeah, I mean, it's seriously exciting. It's a very exciting. Just generally, the data and analytics space is. I mean, I sort of say, I find myself saying this on almost every episode. It's just a world of opportunity. Super exciting space to be in, and still much further, so much more room to grow. So much more growth and advancement yet to happen. Anuj, I think we better round off there. Incredible conversation. Really enjoyed your insights. You've got some super experience in such a large industry, and just to be able to leverage off some of your backgrounds and your experiences and also what you're doing right now, I think has been great. I've learned quite a bit myself, and I'm sure the audience, our audience, would have as well. So, just a big thank you for your time and for jumping on the podcast with me.
No problems, and thank you for inviting me. Appreciate it.
Great. Okay, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to the Analytic Mind. Another great episode down. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite channel, and also don't forget to leave us some feedback. We always read it. Okay, everyone. Take care.